All right, so today we're going to go through how to factor polynomials that look like x squared plus bx plus c, in other words, quadratics, and that have a leading coefficient of 1. So really, that's our goal today. So there's our learning target. Before we get going, how many candy hearts do you think are in this bag in total? Okay. So how do I factor polynomials in x squared plus bx plus c form? So those are quadratics. So we're really looking at how do we solve quadratics. Well, one of the ways that we can solve quadratics is by factoring. What is solving a quadratic? What that means, if you look at this picture, the solutions here, these are really your x-intercepts, okay? So when we're finding or solving a quadratic, we're really looking for where y is equal to 0. Those are called x-intercepts, right? So solutions, that's what we're trying to find. Now, to solve quadratics, what we're going to learn here moving forward, here are the ways that you can solve quadratics, okay? They are graphing, factoring, using square roots, completing the square quadratic formula. So we're going to go over how to do these, okay? And we're going to start with factoring today. And we're not actually going to solve quadratics just yet. We're just going to review how do we factor and go over those. So we'll spend today's lesson and the next lesson just reviewing those things, and then we'll kind of put it back together. Okay, so here we go. Let's talk about factoring again. What is factoring? So if you remember, factoring is actually using the distributive property backwards. So first of all, distributive property, if you remember, if I distribute this, x times that, x, I get x squared. Okay, then I go x times this, I get that, okay? And then you're going to say, all right, now I'm going to do this times this, 2 times both of those, you get that, and then 2 times that, and you get this. Okay, so you'd get x squared plus 5x plus 2x plus 10, and then you would combine these like terms, they would become 2x plus 5x is 7x. So my answer here would be this. X squared plus 7x plus 10. So that's if you distribute. Well, the distributive property actually works both ways, okay? We can actually go from x squared plus 7x plus 10 back to this right here. And this is called factored form. So really it's just working backwards. So today what we're going to do is take something that looks like this, x squared plus 7x plus 10, and go back to this. So now you might notice a few things, okay? You'll notice here 2 and 5. Well, 2 times 5 is 10, and 2 plus 5 is 7. So this is how we can get these numbers to work backwards and get this. You'll notice it's in a form, I've got a binomial. They both have an x in the front. That's so I can get that x squared term. So that's really what we're going to look for, okay? So how do we factor x squared plus bx plus c? We're going to look for two numbers that multiply to be this c value right here, but also add to be this b value in front of the x, okay? So that's how we factor x squared plus bx plus c forms, okay? So let's take a look. All right, what's really helpful with this is if you're really good with your multiplication tables, especially like up to 12, that really helps. If you're not, you might want to go onto the internet and download one and put it into Notability so you have that as a helper. So how do we factor this? Well, I'm going to start out, I know I'm going backwards, and when I factor this, in order to get the factored form, I know it's going to be two binomials. That will always be the case. And I know that in order to get that x squared term, I need an x here and an x here. So now the question is, what goes though in those two spots, right? So how do we do that? Well, you can make a table. You may not want to do this every time if you're good with but just to get you comfortable with this, what we're really trying to look for is numbers that multiply to be 24. Okay, so multiply to be c, but add up to be 11. So you are going to write factors of 24. So what are numbers that multiply to be 24? So 1 and 24. Okay, what else? 2 and 12. There's a bunch for 24. 3 and 8, 4 and 6, and that you've got them all, okay? Now, you want to say which pair is going to add up to be 11, right? Well, 1 plus 24 is 25. Okay, nope. If I go 2 plus 12, that's 14. If I go 3 plus 8, that's 11. And this is 10, right? So I want this one. This one adds up to be 11. So this is the pair that I'm going to use. So this would be x plus 3 and x plus 8. Notice both of those terms are positive, so I'm going to use a plus sign there. If they were negative, I would put that on there. So now this is the factored form of this, okay? And how do you know that's for sure the case? Well, you could always distribute and see if you get this, okay? So I'm going to do it just this first time so you see how that works. So x times x, x squared. X times 8, 8x. 3 times x, 3x. And then 3 times 8 is 24. Combine like terms, so I have x squared plus 11x plus 24. Notice it's the same as what we had up here. It checks out. That's a quick check. You do not need to do that check. It's just if you want to. It's one of the things that you can do. Okay? All right. Let's try another one. Okay, so to just get into the habit of how these work, you can pretty much always just start out by doing this and this. All right, so now again, you can list out numbers that multiply to be 56. Okay, but add up to be 15. Okay, so what are the factors of 56? 1 and 56 is 1. Okay, you know 2 goes in there evenly. If you're not good with if it goes in there, you can always use your calculator. Go to your MCA calculator, bring it up. And you can just kind of work backwards, right? You could say, does 2 go in there? Well, you know it's even, so it does. So you might say 56 divided by 2. What is that? Oh, it's 28. Okay, so that means 2 and 28. 4 might go in there. 3 might go in there. You could try to see if it does. So if you're not sure, again, go 56 divided by 3. Nope. 56 divided by 4. Yup. 4 and 14. Okay. So that's what you can do, a strategy. You can use your calculator. Anyways, you're going to keep going, and you're going to run across this. Now, if you add these together, you get 57. If you add these together, you get 30. You get 18. You get 15. Well, this is the one I want, okay? Now, you do not have to make this table if you're pretty good with your times tables. You might just write out a few of them. So it's up to you. This is kind of what I do with my algebra classes, my Algebra 1 classes, to just see if they're ready and get them used to that. So positive 8, positive 7. Okay, so now that you've hopefully got the hang of this, now what about negatives? Okay, so you got to be careful. This is a key with your integer addition and multiplication, that you're understanding how those signs work. So again, I'm going to start by doing this. Now, what are some numbers that multiply to be 18? Well, it's negative 18, but I'm just going to start with 18. So let's see. I've got 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Okay, now it's negative 18, so that means one of these has to be negative, and it's got to add up to be negative 3. So how can I get there? Well, the only possibility, there's no way I can get to negative 3 with these two or with these two. So really the only possibility I have is this one, 3 and 6, because notice they're 3 units apart. Now, when I'm multiplying, that means one of them has to be negative, right? So if I put the negative here, a negative 3 plus 6 gives me positive 3. Well, that's not the same, right? I need negative 3. So that won't work. So that means I'm going to have to put the negative on the other one, okay? So now 3 plus negative 6 is negative 3. So those signs matter. Okay, so you have to be really careful. So that means I want the negative on the 6. So I'm going to put plus 3 and minus 6. Okay, and that's my answer. Okay. This is kind of a sneaky one. All right, I've got x squared minus 12x plus 32. I know some numbers that multiply to be 32. I'm going to go across 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 8 and 4. Well, 8 and 4 I can get to be 12. So I have this 8 and 4. Okay. Well, if I just leave it as 8 and 4 and add those together, I get 8 plus 4, right, is 12. But that's not negative 12. So how can I get that to be negative? If I just do one of them negative, right, that's not going to work either. I'm going to get negative 4, etc. So then, in this case, remember, negative times a negative gives me a positive if I multiply those. And negative 8 plus negative 4 is negative 12. So this is what I'm going to do here. I want to use that pair. So this is kind of a, how do I know it's both are going to have to be, well, this is positive and this is a negative sign. The only way I can get a negative is if they're both negative then, and get a positive when I'm multiplying. So this would be x minus 8 and x minus 4. Now, does it matter if you switch these two around? No. It doesn't matter what order those are in, just as long as the signs are both negative. Okay? And that's the factored form. I hope you remember that. Again, you don't have to make these tables that I have here if you're feeling pretty comfortable. If you can do this in your head, no worries, okay? And sometimes you might just need to write down a few of them. Okay, that's it. I hope that's a nice refresher. You hopefully remember this from your Algebra 1 days. This is your assignment. Don't forget to write it in your assignment plan book and check it off once you've turned it in. All right?